Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for cash tags. For that, let's bring in our next guest. It's going to be Landon Swan. He's a co-founder of LikeFolio. Landon, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right, so we're talking Cava. I mean, it kind of reminds me, when you look at the chart, especially over the last 6 to 8 months or so, it kind of sets up with what we've seen in Chipotle lately, which hit nearly 2-year highs yesterday. These stocks are just running into some problems, and maybe it's valuation, that they were overvalued, on that front. But what kind of data do you have on this one? Because it seems like the bar is relatively low on this one.
It's super low. If you look at the stock, it's been kind of dead or flat since February. Really not a lot going on. I'm sure investors are fairly frustrated. And you mentioned Chipotle. If the viewer is not familiar with Cava, it's basically like the Mediterranean Chipotle, right? Much smaller in number of restaurants, but still that's what they do. That's their business, fast casual. They bought Zoe's, I think maybe 6-7 years ago. They're converting those. They've got just under 400 stores, or 400 locations, I should say, across about 26 states. So, that's their business, and they're doing a lot of things right, frankly. If you look at Q1, their same-store sales were up almost 11%, while Chipotle was down to 2.3%. McDonald's was down 3.6%. So they're growing in the right directions. A lot of that same-store sales increase was due to add-ons on the menu sides. They didn't make any price changes, but they started promoting add-ons, and people started having larger orders. They've got great margins at about 25%. They're investing in technology, so they're building out these kitchen display systems that they're currently in about 15% of the stores. They're going to roll out the rest of them to the rest of the stores by the end of the year. They got a good loyalty program up. They got about 8 million users, up 3.5% on loyalty sales. And so they're doing really well. And if you look at some of the data that we've got, like their monthly active users on their app, it's up significantly on a year-over-year basis. So people are starting to really, buy into this. They're nearly doubled. Plus 75%. Very strong numbers on the monthly active users, continuing to grow and grow. And of course, app is where you're going to place orders. You're going to see what's on the menu, all of that. When you compare them to some of their peers, they have good data. I think they're plus 9%, but the rest of them are doing a little bit better. So it's kind of a mixed bag there. Obviously you want to see positives, but you'd rather see them towards the top of this list. But still, plus 9% is a strong number, especially given where the stock is at. The bar is, again, it's very low. So overall, I'd say that this company is well positioned to, maybe not surprise to the upside, but I don't think they're going to disappoint. I think expectations are so low that they're going to come in with some decent data. Everything is moving in the right direction. We don't see them coming out with bad numbers on this report, and really just comes back to, the stock is trading so low, and it's been so low for long, about half of what it was maybe a couple of years ago. And so, is it time to say, okay, I think they're actually getting the hang of this. Let's turn this into an investment. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's, cautiously optimistic, slightly bullish on this going into this earnings report for sure. We like where the company's headed. It's early days Chipotle in the Mediterranean flavor type of thing.
Landon, you mentioned the strong margins and the same-store sales are both great. What really caught my eye was the prospects for their growth. They have right now under 390 stores, and they want to get to 2,000 in the next decade. That's 5 times what they are right now, man, and that's a big growth trajectory for a company like this. And if they keep growing, and remember, they're not just fast casual. They're in grocery stores. Their dips, spreads, and dressings are in the grocery stores, and so they've got 2 buckets of income coming. So this just looks like, in all, the way I read about it, the way I look at it, it's a really high-quality company that may have gotten caught up, and because it's so young and the valuations are kind of high because of the prospective growth, it just got caught up in this. Sold off Chipotle, you got to sell off Cava. Landon, your thoughts?
Yeah, I really think that's what it is, because they are so small. Even if they put good numbers, you start talking about 5xing the number of stores, that's a lofty goal, and I think that they've got to show that they're moving solidly towards that to gain confidence. You can see the data here, though, just sort of it's similar to OnCloud yesterday. We've got a bit of a divergence going where the data is heading up and the stock, it's not exactly heading down, but it's not doing much. I mean, it's sideways since February, and so this is a bit of an opportunity, I think, for them to come out with good numbers to to relieve the pressure of stagnant stock movement for investors, and I think that we can get an upside move here. I'm not as confident in this one as I was yesterday with OnCloud, but I'm still, I'd be willing to take a bet on Cava here. I think that, especially long term, I think everything's moving in the right direction for them. I do believe they're going to have an earnings report in the next 2 or 3 that gets people thinking, okay, this company's actually, they're undervalued here. We need to get in on this. I don't know if it's this report. My gut says it probably is. I like all the numbers that we're showing. I just don't know if they're big enough. That plus 9% has me like, bullish, but not super bullish. So that's kind of where we're at right now on Cava.
Yeah, Landon, you mentioned the Chipotle comparison. Chipotle's got, I think 3,500 outlets or something at this point. They've got less than 400. But if you looked at Chipotle's last earnings event, they actually saw, overall sales fall about 4%. The only reason it wasn't worse than that was because of new stores that they're opening. And I know Cava's expanding, but with a forward PE above 170 at this point, that's what scares me about these names is they need to expand their footprint, but at the same time, when the forward valuation's based on something that might happen in 5 or 10 years, where maybe the near-term results might be painful, if you just look at some comparables.
Yeah, I think that's that's the hesitation, right? I mean, if you want the next Chipotle, but the Mediterranean version, yeah, that's the path that we're on here with Cava, but how long is that road? You talk about the difference in stores, it's what, like a 12th? Or an eighth, I'm sorry, of the number of stores. So it is very small compared to Chipotle. And, frankly, we've done a lot of studies at LikeFolio on different flavor profiles and things. We have food makers as clients, and I know Mexican is more popular than Mediterranean. So that I don't think that you can make that direct comparison and say they're going to be as big as Chipotle, because I just don't think that that the consumer perceptions of that style of food warrant the same kind of popularity. I do know that there's room for them. I just don't know if they can get that big. It's a lot of stores to add, but they're on the right track. I mean, same store sales up almost 11% last quarter. That's good. Obviously, if they had Chipotle numbers and they're off a few points, that would be concerning. And if your only growth is from new restaurants, that's concerning. But that's not what's happening right now. They have the growth. They're becoming very popular. Every data point that we have is up and to the right. So this fact that the stock is sideways, the only argument you can make for that is what you just said, the PE ratio, which is a very strong argument.
Yeah.
How long are you going to have to wait on that forward PE ratio to become the current PE ratio? And I think that's what investors have to weigh. So again, I think we're going to see a good quarter earnings report and reaction over the next 2 or 3. Whether it's this one or maybe the next one or the one after that, I think that's the question. But I'm very comfortable buying and holding this long term. I'm also somewhat comfortable making a bet on it, but not nearly as comfortable as we were yesterday. By the way, Kevin, you nailed that trade yesterday on OnCloud. I don't think you could have picked 2 better strikes. Well done.
Nice. And, you wonder about that because you mentioned the fact that, Mexican food it may be a little bit more popular and it has staying power, right? You want to keep going back. Will this be a flash in the pan, or does this have staying power as far as tastes go? So that's interesting. Also, all right, great stuff as always, Landon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's Landon Swan, co-founder of LikeFolio, breaking down Cava for us.